Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of Monmouthshire County Council's Cabinet. We shall start with introductions. This is a hybrid meeting, so we have a number of members here in the council chamber and a number of members joining us online. I'm Richard John, leader of Monmouthshire County Council, and I'll introduce my colleagues with me in the chamber first of all. And we'll start with Penny, please.
I'm Penny Jones, I'm Penny Jones, and I'm a cabinet member for Health, Social Services and Safeguarding.
Thank you, Phil.
Councillor Phil Murphy, cabinet member for Resources.
Thank you, and our colleagues joining us online, Bob.
Bob Greenland, Joint Deputy Leader and responsible for governance and strategic planning.
Thank you, Sarah.
Good afternoon, Sarah Jones, Cabinet Member for the Economy and Joint Deputy Leader.
Thank you, Jane.
Good afternoon, Jane Pratt, Cabinet Member for Infrastructure and Neighbourhood Services.
Thank you, and Paul.
Good afternoon, Councillor Paul Papier, Cabinet Lead for Education.
Thank you very much. And can I invite opposition leaders to introduce themselves? Can I start with Jo Watkins, please?
Thank you very much. Jo Watkins, leader of the Liberal Democrat Group.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Jo. I don't know if we have Dimitri Petruni or Simon Howarth with us, leaders of the Labour or Independent groups. No? Okay. Can I also welcome Tudor Thomas? Tudor, do you want to introduce yourself as well?
I'm Tudor Thomas and I'm Chair of Children and Young People. Thanks.
Welcome, Tudor. And can I ask officers to introduce themselves as and when they contribute to the meeting, please? The first item on the agenda today is apologies for absence. We've had apologies from Councillor Lisa Dimmock. I don't think we've had any other apologies for today's meeting. Declarations of interest. If I can ask people to declare as and when, that would be very helpful. We've got a short agenda today, but no less important. We've got a really substantive item, first of all. So moving on to item 3, and our first report today is our 21st Century School programme and the outcome of the statutory consultation to establish an all-through school in Abergavenny. And presenting this report for us today is Councillor Paul Pavier.
Thank you, Leader. So the purpose of this report is to provide Cabinet colleagues with the outcomes of the recent consultation exercise regarding the authority's intention to establish an all-through school with a specialist centre for children with complex neurodevelopmental needs and learning needs in Abergavenny on the site of the King Henry VIII Comprehensive School. So you'll see in the covering report, it presents a synopsis of the full consultation report to Cabinet colleagues, which is obviously attached within the agenda. And that full report, which is, in my view, really comprehensive and extremely balanced, is there obviously for all of you to see. And as portfolio lead, I'm seeking Cabinet's approval to proceed to the next stage of the process, which is the publication of statutory notices. I would like to draw Cabinet colleagues' attention to the changes that are proposed compared to the published proposal, which was consulted on. And the most significant aspect is the change from the school being a 4 to 19 school with a non-maintained nursery setting to a 3 to 19 with a maintained nursery setting. And I'll cover that issue in more detail in a moment. Cabinet colleagues will be aware that agreement to proceed with the project and the associated funding are separate decision-making processes. So this report is only to agree the school organisation route that will be, which will allow the creation of a new school. So essentially, it's just the governance function. I don't intend to go through the report in detail. However, there are some elements I just want to draw out before we have a further discussion on the proposals and conclude with making some firm recommendations. So in terms of the key rationale, to affirm our objective in our corporate plan, which is to ensure the commitment to every young person in Monmouthshire to have the best possible start in life and the best education possible. Cabinet agreed in October 2017 the submission of the Council's Band B proposals to Welsh Government as part of the 21st Century Schools programme. And the major part of that proposal was to establish an all-through school on the King Henry VIII school site in Abergavenny, and that's set out on page 5 of the consultation report. And just to remind members, because I know that we've got some new Cabinet members in, that the all-through school combines at least the primary and secondary phase of education, and at sometimes nursery and sixth form phases as well, within a single institution managed by one head teacher with one single governing body, and is funded as one single school. So in the cover report, 3.11 to 3.15 sets out the fundamental educational benefits of the all-through school model, and the strategic benefits are set out at 3.31 to 3.36. 3.04 to 3.10 sets out key elements underpinning the proposals that we consulted on, which is to create a new all-through school with a specialist centre for children with complex neurodevelopmental and learning needs, with a non-maintained nursery and external flying start provision. Colleagues will appreciate there has been obviously a bit of a delay since October 2017 to get into this stage. Obviously, there's been challenges around the pandemic, but before the pandemic, there were obviously some project challenges with developing the Caldecott and Monmouth secondary schools in Band A, but we've been able to draw on the knowledge and experience of those projects, and I think taking them into this project in Band B will be really fundamental. And I'm pleased that we've got Tim Bird has just started with us in September, the former deputy at Monmouth School, and was key in leading up the Monmouth school project. 316 to 317 then sets out the consultation process, and the detailed methodology is in the main report and on pages 8 to 10. It was a really extensive process in my view, and given the restrictions that were in place at the time, COVID restrictions, and the authority responded to the COVID outbreak in Derry View, which was just before the half term, to extend the consultation period for a further 3 weeks. Other than the pupil voice sessions, which took place towards the back end of the consultation period, I attended every engagement session with governors, staff, parents, and the wider school community. In terms of the number of responses, in my view, there's probably not as many as I hoped for. And in terms of submissions in support of the proposals, you will see the numbers there. Numbers in favour 36, partially in favour 59, are significantly lower than those against the proposal, 125. Of course, the public and school stakeholders have the opportunity to oppose or support the proposed scheme based on any aspect relating to the governance arrangements. And while there were objections relating to issues around design and traffic implications, while not relevant at this stage, they will be taken forward in the subsequent discussions regarding the school's form and design, and that will be in a number of weeks' time. So officers had the opportunity over the summer to drill down on what were some of the fundamental themes that emerged from the consultation, which the cover report highlights in Table 2, and the detail of which is covered in the main report comprehensively, I think, on pages 12 to 32. The top two concerns were in relation to the proposal for the nursery, to have non-maintained nursery provision instead of the current maintained provision, and that carrying across. And the second point was in relation to the impact the development would have on pupils with additional learning needs. In terms of the second point, I have to say the officers have provided really strong responses and evidence to concerns raised, and you'll see that from page 15 in the consultation report. And having discussed many of those aspects with affected parents during the consultation meetings, matters like disruption, staffing structure, etc. When after further explanation, I think parents can understand the opportunities that a new bespoke element of the school would provide them and would provide for their children. particularly the continuity of support throughout their school life. I think the majority of parents were really supportive during those engagement meetings. However, there's no getting away from the debate remaining around maintained versus non-maintained provision. Cabinet colleagues will remember we initially debated this issue at full council in July when opposition members brought forward a motion to reject outright the non-maintained nursery provision for the school development. At that time, I led the debate on behalf of the Cabinet, I was very clear that we couldn't support the motion at the time because it was a little over 4 weeks from the close of consultation, and officers were still examining the responses from pupils, parents and staff and the community in detail. So it wouldn't have been prudent to try and preempt what the responses were going to tell us. B, that we didn't have enough information at the time to have an informed debate. And C, and in my view, this may not be the view of other members of the council, I thought the focus of the debate was very much around maintained provision being good for this project and private being bad for this project. Something as the Cabinet I don't think we could accept because we couldn't preempt what the community was going to tell us. But the fact is that over half our early years provision is in non-maintained, and that's made up of various different models of provision. And the Flying Start provision in Derry View is being delivered by independent providers. So to have a non-maintained provision isn't unusual. We tested out the non-maintained proposal during the consultation, and I believe that was the right thing to do. Because the rationale for testing was powerful, particularly around offering families the opportunity to access wraparound childcare, which is a significant benefit for working families, something the Welsh Government has already highlighted in a number of reports. It aligns to the 30-hour free childcare offer, which looks to remove barriers to employment. And the other aspects were all staff in non-maintained settings must have a specific qualification in childcare that focuses specifically on child development, something again which is a priority for Welsh Government, and that non-maintained settings across Monmouthshire are extensively regulated by both Estyn and Care Inspectorate Wales. However, during that debate, I was very clear that if the concerns around nursery provision, which I heard myself very clearly during the consultation events that I attended, played out across the consultation submissions, and it developed as a key theme with the potential to potentially undermine the wider project for the community, then it would have a considerable bearing on any strategic decision this Cabinet and essentially Council will make in due course. It is important that consultations are entered into meaningfully, objectively, and they're not predetermined in any way, because we've criticised other public bodies for not upholding these values in the past, and I think we were right to do so. So it was clear from the responses that there was little appetite to move to a non-maintained provision, and that is set out in the covering report from 3.21 to 3.28. With this in mind, I would not want to impose anything on the community that it does not want. That is why I'm recommending that the proposals be altered from a school being 4 to 19 school with a non-maintained nursery setting to 319 with a maintained nursery setting. However, the point that I raised about the benefits of additional wraparound childcare, I think is still very valid. And throughout this process, it was evidently clear that this part of Abergavenny, this part of our county, faces a number of challenges around income deprivation, underperformance in relation to educational outcomes, underperformance or lack of high-paid, high-skilled employment opportunities. Those challenges that we're continuing to work on and to resolve as a council, but challenges we can't simply resolve unilaterally. So, however, I strongly believe we have a duty to support parents into work or maintaining work by providing them with opportunities to overcome what is probably the most significant barrier to achieving that goal, which is flexible and affordable childcare. So you will see in 3.29 and 330, which is looking to support the community by ensuring that Flying Start provision will move to the new site, which is currently delivered by an independent provider, and that we will work with the community to ensure there is provision for wraparound childcare on the new site as well. So I think in all in all, and in terms of balance, I think we've come to a suitable compromise position, which I hope Cabinet colleagues feel is acceptable, but most importantly, the community believes is acceptable. And obviously, before I conclude, and I know Councillor Thomas is in this meeting, just to say the report has passed through Children and Young People Select Committee for pre-decision scrutiny, which was undertaken in September. And I'm sure Councillor Thomas will set out the sort of concluding remarks of the committee when it scrutinised that paper. So, Leader, I don't know whether you want to look at the recommendations now, or I can obviously conclude the debate with the recommendations. I'll leave it in your hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. I'll come back to the recommendations if that's okay. But Paul, can I thank you for the way in which you've led this? I know an awful lot of work has gone into it, but also the way in which you led that consultation and attending all those public meetings and albeit virtual meetings for the most part. We're really grateful for the volume of work that's gone into this. Can I invite Will McLean, the author of the report? Is there anything you'd like to add, Will?
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Councillor Pavia, for taking the report through so clearly. I think it's I don't think there's anything particular I want to add from what Councillor Pavia said already. I think it was a really thorough process. We did go, as we always do, with an open mind as to what the outcome should be. It was a difficult period of consultation because of the COVID restrictions, and I'm grateful to my colleagues within CYP Directorate who made amendments to make sure that as many people as possible were able to attend, to have their voices heard, and to share their views with us. I would share Councillor Pavia's view that the position we've arrived at now is one whereby I think we can meet the community and their concerns, but also continue to provide in the future, that wraparound childcare opportunity for families, which will be really important as hopefully people move back into work post-pandemic, and will really put the new school at the heart of its community, right from children's start of life all the way through to their conclusion of their education. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. So the raise hand icon is up in the chat bar. So I'll invite Cabinet colleagues to come in a moment. But first of all, can I invite Councillor Tudor Thomas, Chair of the Children and Young People Select Committee, to come in? Because I'm mindful that this report and the conclusions of the consultation have already gone to Select. Tudor, is there anything you'd like to say, reflecting on that discussion, please?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks to Councillor Paul Pavia and Will McLean now, for that comprehensive report. I think, certainly listening to the community, and the school is not actually in my ward, but it's an area that I know particularly well. I do think that the right decision, in my opinion, has been made in terms of the maintained provision at 3. I think that caused a great deal of concern amongst people in the community, particularly parents, and I think, unfortunately, I think that had a sort of a negative effect on the whole project. And I think that was reflected in discussion that was had at Town Council, the Town Council for Abergavenny. Generally, listening to the community, there is obviously concern, particularly for parents whose children are going to have to move when this plan goes right through. And obviously moving a school is quite a big undertaking, and it does have quite a big effect on the youngsters, the pupils in school, and obviously parents and the community. But I think we've actually moved to the sort of correct spot in terms of having maintained provision at 3. And I think generally people in the community are happy with that outcome. And I think it's important as well that the authority has been seen to actually listen to public opinion, and obviously the whole process of consultation is to garner that. And I think the local community are happy in that sense that they have been listened to. I think there's still a great deal of work to be undertaken within the community as the plan, if it's accepted today, as it goes forward. Generally in CYP, members of all political groups were in favour. King Henry's in a very poor state of repair at the moment. It's not really fit for purpose in the 21st century in terms of teaching and learning, and particularly when you compare it to Monmouth Comprehensive School, which is obviously brand new development, and the Welsh Government 21st Century School Development, as is Caldecott. So I think that there's a great deal of positivity, if you like, in terms of that development, but obviously we are going into a new area, and particularly the concept of an all-through school. The only thing that I would say is that other authorities, notably Carmarthenshire and Ceredigion, they've moved to this system with some of their comprehensive schools, and having 3 or 4 to 19, and they do appear to be working well, and it certainly bridges the gap when the transition comes between Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3. So I'd only reiterate what was said at CYP, that overall positive, but obviously concerned about the nursery provision, which has now been addressed. So I think that was the feeling that I strongly took at the last CYP on the 21st of September. Thanks.
Tudor, thank you very much for that contribution. Just to correct you on one point, if that's okay. Obviously, the brand new schools in Monmouth and Caldecott weren't just delivered by Welsh Government. It was a 50-50 funding between Welsh Government and Monmouthshire County Council. But evidence that we can work in partnership with both Welsh and UK governments, and that's something we were really proud to do. Thank you for that contribution, and I'm mindful. There was a very thorough debate in Children and Young People Select Committee on this. I mean, this is one of the projects of which we're most proud as an administration. We were very clear in 2017 that we wanted, the main priority for us was to ensure that children and young people have the very best life chances, and renewing our school estate, particularly our secondary school estate. So we're really proud of the new schools in Caldecott and Monmouth, and all the brand new technology within them, and those flexible learning environments that are ideal for the rollout of the new curriculum. And this project is a massive financial commitment for us, but it's something we are confident will contribute to levelling up Abergavenny and ensuring that children from deprived backgrounds, and in fact all children and young people in the Abergavenny area, have the very best life chances. I wanted to comment on the nursery discussion, because when we began this consultation, it was something we were very committed to, ensuring that working people would be able to access affordable childcare. So the ability to access the 30 hours free childcare scheme was really important to us, and I think Councillor Pavia, your proposal of a compromise, if you like, a way forward whereby we can ensure that there's nursery provision that is part of the school, but that parents can also access wraparound childcare, that 30 hours free childcare scheme is available to families in the Abergavenny area, is really important. So this is probably one of the most important reports we've considered as a cabinet, and really look forward to seeing this project develop and moving to the build stage next year. Can I invite some cabinet colleagues to come in at this point, please? Can I start with Bob, please?
you, Leader, and thank you, Paul, for your presentation. I'm so pleased that we are at this stage with this project. It is a huge commitment for us and obviously for Welsh Government as well. But in terms of our budgets, this really is giving a huge amount of our budget across to the new school in Abergavenny, and it's absolutely right that we should do this. And it's absolutely right that we should take the time to get the best solution and to listen to the consultations as they move forward. And I've read through in detail all the consultation responses that we've had to this. And so I'm very happy to be proceeding on the basis of the recommendations. And reading through those consultation, it was clear that the nursery provision is an issue and has been an issue for parents and for residents in the town, and we clearly need to be listening to their views. Now, I don't see and I think, you know, we've got to make sure that this is the right solution that we come up with for the nursery. Now, I don't see it actually written in the recommendations there, and although I hear the sentiment of what we want to come to, the right solution for the town, are we going to come back to a more detailed report on those provisions for nursery education at a later time? And is it not more appropriate that that decision is left until we have further time to see the report from officers in the way that that Paul has actually outlined it? But I don't see that it's there in the recommendations at the moment.
Thank you, Bob. Will, I don't know if you want to come in on Bob's point and the discussion about the next stages of this. Obviously, there are further decision points along the road, aren't there?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you for bringing me in on this. So the recommendations in the report in front of members today are critical in terms of establishing the school itself. We don't need the same level of approval to establish a non-maintained setting, but to establish a school, there's a process of consultation, the publication of statutory notices, and another report that will come back to you on the conclusion of that period, at which you will make the final decision about how you wish to proceed. So the recommendations today are that we publish the statutory notices for a school to be created on the King Henry VIII site that will be for children from 3 to 19. And that early marker, that 3-year-old, is really important because it signifies that it will be responsible for the nursery phase of their education. As we go through this process now, though, as we make our decisions at Monmouthshire County Council about support for this project and its full funding through the full business case process, doing that alongside submissions to Welsh Government, there will be opportunities for us to reflect in more detail about the provision that will exist in the new school. So there will be several more opportunities for members to consider the nature of that provision. The other point is that the non-maintained setting, delivering both Flying Start provision and also wraparound childcare, is something that in the future we will tender for. So we will go to the market and we will look for a provision to do that on the new site. And so there is a lot of work that we'll undertake to make sure that we're ready to go to the market to find the very best provider, working alongside our colleagues in the Flying Start team. And that's something which my colleague Beth Watkins, who leads on Flying Start for Monmouthshire, has been working on, along with Sue Hall in our early years team, for a significant period of time. So there's a lot of expertise in that. But certainly members will have other opportunities to consider the provision that will be made on the new school site.
Fab, thank you. Did you want to come back on that, Bob?
No, I think Will has given clarity. So the recommendations are as they are written in the report. Yeah, no, I'm very happy with that. Yeah.
Fab, thank you. Can I invite Councillor Jane Pratt to come in, please?
Thank you very much, Leader. And I welcome the proposals for this new school, which will serve the children of my ward. And more schools are opening up that do provide education for children from 3 to 19. And in fact, I have read that according to the New Schools Network, 25% of all new schools in the near future will be of this type. I'd like to thank the Cabinet Member and officers for the report and the scrutiny of the Select Committee. And I fully support the recommendations in the report. And it is also to be celebrated that this school will be built as a carbon neutral school. Thank you very much, Leader.
Thank you very much, Jane. Could I invite Councillor Penny Jones to come in, please?
Thank you, Leader. And thank you, Paul, for the report, and Will, which was very clear. I'd just like to make a comment, really, from the safeguarding point of view, and that is that the advantage for provision of the wraparound childcare on the new site, alongside the Flying Start provision, is that it enables working parents to access early education and childcare on the same site, which not only is an obvious reduction in travelling time and expense, etc., but is also a definite advantage from the safeguarding point of view. And, I just want to highlight that safeguarding is an extremely important issue to be concerned with throughout this process. And I'll be interested in further measures. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Well, can I thank Cabinet colleagues for those contributions? As members have said, this is a project of which we're extremely proud, and a lot more time and thought is going to go into further developing these projects, including this project, including the design, before we get into the building next year. Paul, do you want to sum up, please? Do you want to reflect on some of those contributions?
Yeah, can I obviously thank Cabinet colleagues for their thoughtful comments, and thank Councillor Thomas as well for his thoughts and his contribution. This is a significant project, and as Councillor Pratt has just alluded to, it's going to be one that's going to be carbon neutral. There's obviously an additional cost element to that. But that will be worked in during the design phase, which will come after we formally finalise the governance function for the school. It's an exciting development, not just for the local community, but for the entire county, I think. And it just sort of underpins our commitment and a long-term commitment, because we've been looking at this. In terms of the restoration of all our schools and the refurbishment and build of all our schools for a long time now. We've still got another school to go after this. So it's going to be well into this decade where we're going to be looking at Chepstow. But those initial discussions with Tim on board now, Tim Byrne on board, we can start those discussions with Welsh Government within the next year or so. So in terms of the contribution, sorry, Bob, if I wasn't clear or that in terms of what I set out, but the chief officer sort of clarified the issue there around the maintained, non-maintained, and the next steps that we need to proceed on. There'll obviously be an opportunity for the community to respond to the statutory notices, and there may well be some concerns raised about the closure of Derryview in particular. I know there was a really strong community support there for the school, but in terms of our long-term objectives, particularly for the Welsh language provision, it really is important that we utilise that school for ysgolifennu that is overflowing, and as Councillor Thomas will know, you know, that Welsh language provision there in the north of the county is really important, and we need to expand that and give those parents and pupils the opportunity to develop as a growing school. As I think Councillor Jones highlighted the safeguarding issue, I know we've had some initial discussions with design teams about how we factor that into the build. It really is important that, you know, while the school is on one site, there is the appropriate safeguarding separations between, you know, the secondary school and primary school. That was you know, an issue of concern that was raised obviously during the consultation process and at the consultation events. I think parents want to try and understand and visualize how the school and all through school will run and operate in practice, and how, you know, particularly those of primary age, there will be that separation between them and those at the secondary school age and sixth form age. So, you know, that those discussions around design will come at the next stage, but I know safeguarding is going to be at the very heart of the design process. So yeah, I think that sort of covers the comments that were made, and just to highlight again the recommendations. 2.1 is to agree to publish the statutory notices in line with the School Standards and Organisation Wales Act 2013, to establish an all-through school with specialist centre for pupils with complex neurodevelopmental needs between the ages of 3 to 19 in Abergavenny. And 2.2 is to agree to publish statutory notices to cease to maintain both Derryview Primary School and King Henry VIII Comprehensive School. Leader.
Thank you very much. Well, I think that's been a really constructive discussion about the issues that were raised in that consultation, and we thank everyone who's taken part in that and taken the time to share their views with us on what is a crucially important project for us, and we look forward to this progressing to its next stage, subject to this vote. So we'll move to the vote now on those recommendations that Councillor Paul Pavia just set out, under 2.1 and 2.2, to proceed to publish those statutory notices. Can I ask Cabinet colleagues to vote now, please? Thank you very much. So that's unanimous. 7 votes in favour of those recommendations. So can I thank you, Paul, and Will as well for your work on this, and also to Judah Thomas for your committee's scrutiny of that report. We'll look forward to this project coming back to us in the near future for further discussion. The next item on the agenda is the Welsh Church Fund, and presenting this report today is Councillor Phil Murphy, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. And 5 recommendations for this meeting. St Mary's Priory Church in Chepstow requested £1,000 funding assistance for the clearance of gutters, downpipes on the church, removal of vegetation, etc. There's also a wall there that needs to be made safe. We recommend that the whole £1,000 be awarded to assist in that work. Portskewitt and Sudbrook Junior Football Club requested £800 assisting with the profile of the football club regarding signage, bespoke website, etc. We recommend £500 towards that cost. Bringwyn Church, £5,000 required towards re-roofing the church to help stop water ingress. There's also some heating in the church as well that needs to be done, as well as upgrading the electrical system and lighting. 2,500 has been awarded with respect to that. Mathen Village Hall and Mathen District Club requested 1,890 for the replacement of trestle tables that are over 40 years old. We recommend £1,000 towards that. And Shire Newton Local History Society requested £1,000 to increase the capacity of the Society's storage archive, and we recommend £500 towards that. And that's the recommendations for this meeting, Leader.
Thank you very much. If any Cabinet members want to comment on any of those proposed disbursements, they're very welcome to. I can't see any hands raised, in which case we'll move to the vote on the recommendation then, which is that the grants set out in 2.1 be awarded as per the schedule. So those 5 disbursements that Councillor Murphy just set out. Can I ask members to vote now, please, on those 5 grants? And that's unanimous, 7 votes in favour. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of today's agenda. So thank you to members and officers for all your contributions today. Our next meeting is 3 o'clock on Wednesday, the 3rd of November. So to members of the public, thank you all very much for your interest, and we look forward to our next meeting then. Thank you all very much and have a good afternoon.